Hello and welcome to Talking Books. I'm Jill de Villiers. My guest today is a South African legend. He has written and performed in more than 50 plays and revues throughout South Africa and abroad. He has written several top-selling books, including cookery books. He has an alter ego who became famous in her own right, Evita Bezuidenhout. He is Pieter-Dirk Uys, and he is here to talk about his latest book, Pieter-Dirk Uys, The Echo of a Noise, a memoir of then and now. Welcome, Pieter-Dirk, and thanks so much for coming in and chatting to us. Let's start with your family and your childhood growing up. Tell me about Hannes and Helga and Pietertjie and Tessatjie.
Pietertjie, the little blonde with a high soprano voice, and Tessatjie with her glasses and with a deep alto voice, so that was interesting from a little girl. Already brilliant at the piano at the age of 9, doing all sorts of things. My parents both musicians, pianists. My mother from Berlin, having brought her piano from Charlottenburg, and that was in the music room. And Pa, organist at the NG Kerk, and with the choir at the church, and with the children's choir, and so there was music everywhere. Dinky toys in the garden, and music in Springbok radio. And in the kitchen was Sunny Abada, who was actually, when I look back at my life, a huge influence in my, I suppose, my discovery of humor, especially Cape Flats humor. And growing up in a very white South Africa, Sunny gave me some color. And it was a lovely thatched roof house in Pinelands with the dennenbome and squirrels and a happy, strangely, wonderfully cocooned life. And actually with this story that I've now put into book form, I suddenly realized, first of all, how much denial there was on so many levels, but also how the small signposts changed my life. Tiny little comments and things that actually made me just go into a different direction.
Like what signposts? Let's
well,
talk
for
about
example,
those
my
little
mum,
ones.
who was, a great pianist and somebody who just so loved music. My father was very nervous and very sort of, you must go to the estate, you must win, you must win. So, Yappa. Tessie would play the piano and I would sing, and Ma would drive us to the city hall. And she'd say, now, just have a wonderful time. Love it, enjoy it, and remember, if you win, you get an ice cream, and if you don't win, you get 2 ice creams. What a philosophy. She didn't say lose, because lose is, if you don't win, you get 2 ice creams. So that changed my attitude to admission. I mean, I'm very happy with 2 ice creams. I've had 2 ice creams for a long, long time. Also my pa, who fought with me for so long about my work because he was scared, because most of my work was anchored in the danger of breaking laws, like at the Space Theatre, where we just did things which weren't allowed, like free speech. And he threw me out of the house, and it was groot drama. We didn't actually get on at all. And yet he gave me the tip. He said, the censor board, the censor board banned my plays. Not fun, because the security police arrived with envelopes, and there wasn't a joke to be had at the moment. And then I saw that they were looking for people to join the censor board. So I said to Pa, why does he join the censor board? He said, for what, why? I said, you'll see movies free and uncut. So he did. So suddenly there they were banning my plays while my father was a censor. I mean, crazy stuff. That changed everything. Within 2 weeks, he said to me, are you scared of them? I said, well, it's the National Party government. He said, no, I'm talking about the censor board. I said, it's the same thing. He said, it's not the same thing. I'm one of them. They don't know what they're doing. They're senile old idiots. They are destroying wonderful films. We saw a Fellini film last week. They cut it to pieces. Please don't be frightened of them. Don't take them seriously. Make fun of them. Maak hulle belaglik. So from my pa came that sort of get out of jail free card. Fantastic. Make fun of your fear.
And you sometimes use that to promote your work by getting it banned and then getting more people coming to see your...
Not really. I just
really?
called the censor board my public relations department because, the banning of a play, although now I would say, oh, what fun. It wasn't fun. I mean, a play has got 6 to 8 people, actors. Suddenly you get a telegram, the police arrive, they stop you. You feel as if you've murdered somebody. It had a very, very bad effect on all of us, actually. There were no T-shirts at the time. But luckily, we suddenly, through a very careful way of finding a balance between fear and fight, we saw the humor. the fact that there was a censor board tipster, there was a typist at the censor board in Pretoria, who would have to type out all my swear words on page 3 of the letter, and the imagine of Mevrou van Staden having to type, and that just, laughter was always there, which really saved my life. Knowing that to laugh at fear makes it less fearful.
But there was also a time that you had these characters on stage that really told the truth in a very satirical, humorous way. And I think sometimes you didn't get caught with that, and people got to see what was actually going on in the
yes,
country.
the plays were easy prey. They were banned. The reviews were difficult because they banned a review, and then I changed the title, and I did it the next night with another title, because the Publications Act said if it's got the title is banned, and therefore the play is banned as well. But with a one-man show, and so they said, "Nee, maar jy mag nie." And I said, "Ja, ek mag," because I knew the law better than they did, and trapped them with their law. And of course, characters, political characters, cartoons, do somehow have a freedom of expression. And then, of course, Evita came, and she was the first person to phone the censor board and say, "Will you please ban Pieter-Dirk Uys because he's dressed up as me and it's on Afrikaans." And so one played the fool, and I think that's terribly important. When people say, when are you going to do something serious? I want to say to them, you don't realize how serious it's been. I say, oh, one day I promise I'll do something serious. So really, truly, it was the structure of the review, meaning I had 12 characters, including President Botha and Pik Botha and Botha Lazy, all the Bothas, and Noel Fine, my white liberal, because I wanted to go to both sides. I didn't want to just have the one side, have all the fun. But then my car would be just behind the curtain if I was at the State Opera House in Pretoria, so that I could grijp my boxes and get the hell out of the place before the trouble started, because the police would come. And it would be they find it difficult to find backstage. And sometimes when they actually found me, they wanted an autograph from Evita. Now that's also crazy. So there was that little bit of madness, very important.
But Evita gained an enormous following across races, across all types of people. That must have been wonderful.
It was a huge surprise. I mean, she was just meant to be there in a show for 3 weeks, but suddenly it seemed to happen at the right time. I think the media liked the idea of putting her on the front page of Die Rapport when P.V. Botha was going overseas for the first time and saying, "Tannie Evita gaan saam." I think they were very upset. And of course, with the Homelands being the ultimate nonsense, putting her as an ambassador to the Homelands and getting fans in government like Piet Koornhof.
Yes,
"Ja, Evita, jy weet, baie lekker." And Pik, of course, sweet old Pik, sweet old Pik. We spread a rumor that he was having an affair with Evita Bezuidenhout, and he started believing it. And later on in both our lives, he and Evita would be up on TV together, like an old Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. So, it was very important for me not to be a successful satirist, meaning not to use the weapon of destruction on people and destroy, which one must do. I had to have a certain sense of there by the grace of God go I.
And how did PW react to your characterization of him?
Well, I keep on saying eventually he had a stroke and had to retire. He hated it, and there was a huge amount of feedback that came back, more in later life than at the time. But I don't care. I didn't care, and I still don't care. I keep on saying politicians must take what they get, and if they don't like it, please retire, and I'll never mention your name again, I promise. And that's important because they are public servants, and P.W. Botha was not a member of a royal family, and it was very easy. I look at the camera, I mean, now I look like him, can you believe it? That's where he can laugh. He can really laugh at that. Piet Koornhof was a fan, which was quite worrying. He said, "No, it's very funny, yeah."
That's great. So let's talk about your love affairs. You had 2 amazing love affairs with Marlene Dietrich and with Sophia Loren. Please tell me about these 2 love affairs.
Well, my love affair with Marlene was a long distance one because she was also from Berlin. And eventually I needed the culture of my mother, of the German songs, and she would sing all the Berlin songs. And she came to Cape Town in 1964, 65, 66 with her incredible one-woman show brought by Peter Turin and Basil Rubin. And I met her. I wrote a letter. I made a drawing of her, and I wrote a letter to Mount Nelson Hotel. Miss Dietrich, I've done a drawing of you. Please, can I sign? And she sent a letter back. In those days, the post office delivered on the day. Do you remember those days? Yes. And she said, come to backstage one night, and I'll send you a drawing. And I dressed with a suit and a tie in those days, you know. It's a terrible drawing. I can't draw. Anyway, she said, where's the drawing? I looked at it. It's beautiful. She says, where's the drawing? I said, here, and I showed her. She said, oh my God, it's terrible. She said, are you an artist? I said, no, I'm an actor. She said, oh, thank heavens, give me a pen, I'll sign it. So it wasn't it. And I've got this drawing. Anyway, Marlene inspired me just by watching her be alone on that stage with memory and with music and with stories and with magic. Sophia?
Okay, now just stay with Marlene for a moment. There's a beautiful photograph of you with her in your suit. They're visiting.
Yes.
And then there's a photograph of you dressed as
her.
Marlene. Please tell me about that one.
And in the middle of it is my drawing. That's in the book,
yeah.
yes. That was in the season when she was there at the Alhambra. On the last night, I had my little blommetjies. I was going to give her flowers, and I had to get onto the stage. And when I got onto the stage, she'd already finished her bow, and she was behind the curtain. I mean, so I went behind the curtain as well. And she was talking to the orchestra, and she turned and she said, what are you doing here? I said, I've come to give you some flowers. She said, don't panic, hold my hand, and let's bow together. So we went out and me bowing with Marlene, and then she turned around, took the flowers, and she gave me a kiss on the cheek, and some photographer, bless him, was in the audience, and he clicked, and there's that picture of me with Marlene. Oh, to wonderlijk. And then a few weeks later, we did a fundraiser for the Space Theatre. And of course, everybody had seen the Marlene show. But I stapled a fur coat together with a staple gun and plastic. And so I also impersonated
But you
Marlene.
looked fantastic in that picture. So also in the book you have a photograph of you with Sophia Loren.
Well, when I was 11, and Dr. Verwoerd was a picture on my wall because he was a gift from God, and we didn't ask questions. And I saw in a Stage and Cinema magazine this picture of this beautiful Italian film star. So I cut it out, put it on the wall next to Hendrik Verwoerd, and the next day Hendrik Verwoerd fell off the wall. I think she saved my life. He stayed off my wall permanently, and she stayed on my wall forever. I just adored her. I just loved her movies, and there was just something about the beauty of the woman. And then the first time I was in Europe, I was 15, 16. I found her apartment in Rome, and I left a letter for her. And when I got back to Cape Town, there was a letter from her. She'd written to me, and so I wrote back, and she wrote. We became pen friends. And at probably the worst time of my life, the day we were burying my mother, she committed suicide, with cremation. It was just everything was so horrible. It wasn't even true, and I had nobody to talk to. It was just, and I just thought, I've got this address in Rome. I'm going to just write to Sophia, and she probably won't get it. She might throw it. It doesn't matter. I wrote. My mother's jumped off the mountain, and she's dead. And what do I do? And within days, a letter came back from Sophia, and she just said, you must help your father and your sister. You can't cry now. You will cry one day, but not now. Be brave. I think it changed my life. That was another small signpost, those two words. And then I met her in 1975 in Paris, and now we're pals. Yeah, and she was in my documentary they made 2 years ago called Nobody's Died Laughing. Sophia's in my movie.
And she's still fine.
She is now 84. And I am 73, but I still feel 16, and she still looks like 27.
I want to talk about being in the closet and coming out of the closet. And you came out of the closet. It was quite a major thing for you to do at the time, but also the country is coming out of a closet. So I want to talk about that, the various closets that people find themselves in and getting themselves out of them.
And some of them are man-made. You make your own closet because fear becomes a structure. Well, of course, it was, homosexuality and being gay. We didn't even use the word gay. Morphe was the word that was thrown around as hate speech against me when I was a little boy. I didn't even know what it meant. But I think it's part of your life, it's part of who you are, and eventually at university, mainly there, I found people like me. I couldn't believe there were people like me. I remember once asking my father, what is a homosexual, and he nearly crashed the car. So I thought that's not the place to go. But I knew we all knew it was illegal, and that was part of our lives. And it also introduced me to another broken law, which was making friends with young men who were not white. That was also illegal. I started questioning my belief that what I'd been told by government was the law and therefore to be obeyed. What is real? The reality of life, or the reality of lies. And so, yes, the closet was there, and it was, but I made no attempt to come out of it, because that would have ended my career. I mean, if I'd sort of come out as homosexual then in 1985, they would have said, yeah, typisch, you know. It's. I did have a very, very extraordinary moment in Bloemfontein in a hotel. We were doing the world premiere of Evita's film, Skating on Thin Ice. And I was interviewed by a journalist from an Afrikaans newspaper, and he said to me, he said, "This is off the record." And I knew, oh, quit. He said, "Man, Pieter, listen, you're gay, no? You're homosexual. Yes, I'm off, no?" I thought, oh, what do I do? And I just said to him, yes, I'm a homosexual on Mondays and Wednesdays. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm a heterosexual. On Fridays, I'm bisexual. On Saturdays, I do it myself, and on Sundays, I rest. And he laughed. And the moment he laughed, he didn't pursue it. And that's again another, you know, there's a balance of fear and fun. And to this day, I use it as a job description. You know, it's part of what I do, but it's not, I don't wave a flag. I'm glad, so glad, that we are really, truly a democracy where people can love each other and legally love each other and adopt children together and be proud of who they are. And all of it is good news. So with all the balance of bad news in South Africa, I keep on saying, yes, but look what we can do. Besides the fact that we have freedom of speech and freedom of expression and all those things, when we lose those, we're going to be in trouble. But we've got to fight to keep those things.
Yeah, so we weren't, as a country, we weren't only ourselves, the whole nation, in the closet in terms of homosexuality, but also in terms of racial relationships and stuff. So
yes.
You're not allowed to marry across the colour bar. You're not allowed to have a relationship. Are we out of that finally? Have we broken out of that closet, or are we still dealing with it?
I think many of us are hiding in that closet, and we've turned it into a timeshare. I really think that we are very scared to go back into the minefield, and this time it's a minefield of hashtags and hate speech. We need counselling on many levels, and humour is a great way. And I think Evita has done an enormous amount. I'm finding out as the years go by, meeting middle-aged men who said, I was a teenager and I discovered my pride in who I was by falling in love with Evita and her son de Kok, beside note. So all that is good. But no, there's a lot that has to be done without strident shouting. That doesn't help. You know, hashtag Me Too is very important, but it's not the only way of confronting that very, very important minefield of harassment and bad things happening at the moment.
I'd like to go back to your childhood and your parents, and little scenes you mentioned a couple of times, I think, how you and your sister were sleeping soundly because of both pianos playing downstairs. It's such a beautiful image.
It's extraordinary. I mean, obviously I heard a lot of music while I was still in my mummy's tummy. And then of course Tessie's room was there, my room was upstairs under the sort of thatched roof, and the music room was downstairs. And they'd play two piano pieces, they'd play solo pieces, they'd have a string quartet, friends would come, and music would be there all the time. And when there was no music, we couldn't sleep. What's wrong? Why is there no music? And to this day, it is my soundtrack. I always have a music soundtrack in my head with me, whistling, singing little soft songs as I wait for a taxi or a Uber.
And Tessa became a concert
And Tessie is a
pianist.
great pianist and a wonderful musician. And yeah, I'm very, very happy that I suppose I have to thank two people for being here today. Amadeus, Mozart, and Adolf Hitler.
Yes,
because thanks to his horror, my mother left Berlin and came to Cape Town and met my father on the stage of the City Hall, where they played a two-piano piece together and got married.
Oh. And your mother's actually Jewish, but you didn't
And
really
she
know
is.
that, huh?
We only found out that she was Jewish after she died. So that was an extraordinary denial, and really, truly, how it never came up. It's just, and again, we as kids of that generation didn't ask questions. We didn't confront our parents with issues. We were just very careful, and Japan.
You also met your grandmother, your mother's mother, but nothing was told to you then through her either. It was
No, I think when you've been through a trauma of exile, you don't want to shine the torch on it. You just want to move into, and they did very successfully create their lives. My mother learned Afrikaans immediately because she knew how important language is. And of course the music. Both my parents brought, through the music, they also broke the barriers of bringing music that was performed in Catholic churches into Afrikaans churches, because my father translated the words into Afrikaans.
Oh, that's one thing that you mentioned as well in your book, is your Afrikaans granny, who had a thing against the British, the Catholic Church and the Jews, and nothing mentioned about the blacks.
No, this was her philosophy. I think I was 6 years. She said, Pietertjie, my kind, remember always, the English are your arch enemies, the Catholics are the Antichrist, and the Jews are all thieves. And she never mentioned the blacks. No, blacks were never a problem. It was English, the Engelse, the Rooinekke, and the Boereoorlog. No. So I did grow up with all that as well, which was something I had to confront. And I'm so happy that really, truly, those days of that era are over. But now, of course, there's another enormous area of contention, which is apartheid, and the legacy of apartheid. And we got away with it in most levels, but the memory doesn't go away and the pain does not go away. And I think it's very important to be aware of experienced people after 25 years of democracy. Black people, colored people still have that agony when they remember what their parents went through. And the young ones who were born after Nelson Mandela was freed are not grateful and wagging their tails. They are very angry. And that's an anger we've got to confront as well and solve it.
One last thing I would like to look at is Darling.
In Darling, yes.
You grew up in Cape Town. As a child, you were very proud of growing up in a city and very happy to grow up in a city.
Yes.
And you went for occasional visits to Darling, and now you're living there.
We went to visit to see the blomme, the wildflowers. Pa would take us there. And now I'm living. And you know, that was another small signpost that I wasn't looking at properly. I went for a drive on the first Freedom Day. That was in 1995. I thought, well, everything is closed. I'm going for a drive. I'll go to McGregor because I've never seen it. And I ended up in Darling. I took in a wrong turning. And I bought a house, a derelict house that had been empty for 7 years. And there were snakes under the floorboard. I mean, nothing makes sense. And that was the best mistake I've ever done, because I'm still there after 22 years.
So tell me about Evita's Perron and Evita's Perron.
It's the old Darling railway station, which they offered me as a storeroom when the carpenter who used it as a workshop left. And then I suddenly thought, wait a minute, it's a little space there. I can build a stage. And Evita Perron was that lady in Argentina, and Perron is Afrikaans for station platform. And Evita Bezuidenhout is the boot of my car. And that's where we started the little theatre, and it's been a work in progress since then. It's been going for 21 years, and it's internationally acclaimed.
And from there, you're doing the Evita show every morning.
So every Sunday morning, I go into the theatre with Stefan Herter, who's my cameraman, and we do an episode of Evita's Free Speech, which goes onto YouTube and into the Daily Maverick on Monday. And we've done 165 episodes, and that is 3 years of every week, Evita's 3 to 4 minutes on the news of the day. And it's quite extraordinary. And my job is to make sure that I don't wear the same costume twice.
And now, as you're aging, but you're still keeping very, very busy, how do you see the next part of your life turning out?
Well, the next part of my life is tomorrow. That's the most important part. If I get through tomorrow, there's the day after tomorrow. I do pencil things in for 2020 because that's my job. Having been unemployed since 1975, I have to do it myself. And I have to plan theatres and productions and general elections and where Evita's going. And she's 10 years older than me, so I've got to not chase her out too much on the high heels because ze wordt moeg. But no, I've got great optimism. Once we, as citizens of our country, just do our homework and realize that we also are part of change, not wait for government to do everything. And Evita is in the ANC now, and they deserve her. So that's fun. And I'm glad that Cyril is there, because we did a lovely thing in 1994. Evita interviewed him for a TV series called Funny Galore, Cyril, and they caught fish together. And that's also on the YouTube. So it's wonderful for YouTube. It's Google, and I mean, everything is there. Otherwise, it would be on the shelf in my study. But now it's on everybody's shelf, and they can share it.
Pieter-Dirk, thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us. It's been wonderful having you here.
Thank you.
So just Pieter-Dirk Uys, the echo of a noise. a memoir of then and now. That is the book we were talking about today. So a lot like what we were talking about here, but a lot more stories of his childhood, his life, and everything interesting. So I really recommend this is a really good read. And that brings us to the end of today's show, and I'll see you soon.